Here is one tip for every country in Geoguessr so you can get the country right every time. Okay, so the first country we have today is the UK. The only tip you need to know for the UK is license plates. So in the UK, cars will have the front license plate being white and the back license plate will be yellow, and they will normally have the blue strip marking EU down the left hand side as well. The next country we are looking at is Ireland. In Ireland, you will often see two languages on the street signs. They will be bilingual. There will be English as well as the Irish text on there. You will also find these yellow diamond signs on the streets. Ireland is the only country in Europe that uses yellow diamond warning signs. So the next country is France. There are 3 clues on this screen for France. The first one is this pole in the background. Spain, Portugal and France use these ladder poles, so you can always narrow it down to one of those 3. This is a French bollard. It is rounded and white with this red reflector section in it. And their street signs are quite clearly French with the smaller yellow D road location on top as well. Equally, if you find a small blue sticker on the poles, you are most certainly in France. For this next one, we have moved on to Belgium. Belgium have a unique license plate as well. They are a standard white plate with the blue strip on the left, but the text is written in red font, which you can often see through the blur of the car. So if you see a license plate with red writing, you should be in Belgium. For the Netherlands, you should note that all the license plates, both front and back, should be yellow. So if you see yellow plates everywhere you look, you should be in the Netherlands. The next country we are looking at is Spain. There are 2 clues on the screen right now. The first one is the crosswalk sign. In Spain, there are numerous lines on the crosswalk sign indicating the crossing that the pedestrian is walking along. There are actually 8 on this sign, more than any other country. So you will always know you are in Spain. Equally, their signs often lack the white border that other countries have, so that's another good indicator for Spain. For Portugal, we are back to using license plates. They have a very distinctive license plate in Portugal. They have the blue strip on the left hand side indicating the EU as normal, but they also have a yellow strip on the right hand side. The next country is Italy. The easiest way by far to identify Italy, aside from the language, is from the license plates. Italy have a unique license plate which has a double blue strip either side of the white plate. At the front, the license plate will be considerably shorter, as you can see on this Range Rover, and on the back the plate is longer but with the same 2 blue strips as well. We have now jumped into Malta. Malta is a tiny island off the coast of Italy that is very easily identified, partly because it's one of the few countries that drives on the left-hand side. Equally, the most obvious thing is you'll be dropped somewhere with this unique pale stone architecture. All of the buildings looking very similar in colour and texture. Equally, they use the word trick as their street sign, and you'll often see the Malta flag dotted around the place as well. The next country we are looking at is Germany. Often the easiest way to identify Germany is by identifying the language. It can be pretty obvious when you're looking at it and you know what you're looking for. They also have yellow street signs like Luxembourg, however the license plates are the standard blue and white. They also have a unique bollard type. If you see the white pole with the white reflector with 2 dots on the back like this one over here, you should be in Germany. The next country we are looking at is Luxembourg. It can be difficult to identify as it looks similar to the countries surrounding it. However, if you see yellow license plates and yellow street signs, often they will say the word Luxembourg on them, but yellow plus yellow should be Luxembourg. The next country we are looking at is Austria. Austria have a unique bollard that you can also see in Slovenia that has this black cap with the red reflector, as you can see. The language also looks like it's from German descent, alongside the landscape of rolling hills and mountainous regions as well. If you see bollards like these with the white reflector on the left and the double horizontal reflectors that are bright orange on the right, you will be in Czechia or Slovakia. The next country is Switzerland. The easiest way to identify Switzerland is from the camera. We have in Switzerland what we call low cam, which means the camera is closer to the ground than in other street view footage. This is due to privacy laws, and the only other country that has the same thing is Japan. You could also identify Switzerland from the architecture and mountainous landscape, as you can see. Similarly, you're likely to find lots of flags, Swiss flags everywhere you look in the footage. And equally, the language is going to look something like German, Austrian or French as well. To identify Croatia, you can usually do it based on these yellow signs with these red bollards as well. Often the capital city will be on the signs too, as this is a relatively small country. So look out for major cities and these yellow signs for Croatia. The next country we are looking at is Serbia. Serbia can be a tricky country to identify, however there are a few clues you can use. Normally they will have two types of language that can be seen on their road signs. Often they are bilingual, meaning that you have the Latin and the Cyrillic writing on the same sign, as you can see here. To differentiate it from Russia, you can use the bilingual language or the fact that they will also have a blue strip on the front of their plates identifying you are in Europe, and the signs will often be yellow, as you can see in this picture here. The next country we are looking at is North Macedonia, arguably one of the harder countries to identify. Often it is the absence of information that would lead you to think North Macedonia, as it has very limited coverage and is often quite rural in location. One thing I would point out is the bollard, which you can see right here. The next country we are looking at is going to be Greece. The easiest way to identify Greece is by looking at the language. As you can see here, this is Greek. The most obvious way to spot it for me is for looking for this E in the text. If you see that, you know it has to be Greek. Equally, these wooden poles combined with a double white centre line often indicate Greece too. The easiest way by far to identify Montenegro and Albania is by using the rifts in the sky. By that I am referring to these two large markings or cutouts noticeable when you're looking around the sky in your footage. That will let you know you're normally in Montenegro or Albania. If you want to confirm one or the other, you can use the bollards, and these are the bollards for Montenegro. To identify Albania, there are two methods you can use often at the same time. One is the same one as previously mentioned in Montenegro with the rifts in the sky. The other one is with the license plates. Albania has two types of license plates. The old one has a red strip down the left-hand side that you can just make out on the back of this car. The other one is the double blue strips, which you can also see in Italy. However, Italy has a short front plate and Albania does not. The next country we are looking at is Bulgaria. For me, the easiest way to identify Bulgaria is looking for Cyrillic being the main language that you'll see, looking very similar to Russian, alongside the blue license plates, indicating you are in Europe. You will often see a lot of web addresses ending .bg as well. You will find a very similar pole to the one you found in Hungary in Romania. However, usually they will be painted white at the bottom. So you can see it's the same pole, slightly thicker, but with a white painted section at the bottom. The next country is Hungary. Hungary have these unique pole types, which are full of these holes that run all the way up the pole, all the way down to the floor. There are two very easy ways you can identify Ukraine aside from the language, which is Cyrillic. The first and most notable one is that the car, if you look down, will often be red. That was normally a good indicator of Ukraine. The only other country that has a lot of red car is Belgium, so that should be easy enough to identify. The other is the license plates. As you can see, they do have what appears to be a blue strip on the left-hand side, but it is actually a mini representation of the flag, which means there is a blue and yellow tinge to the left-hand side of the license plate. It can be very hard to spot and is not always seen on every vehicle, especially older ones, but if you do see that, you should be in Ukraine. Poland have a unique bollard and they look like this. The next country is Lithuania. Again, very similar in terms of landscape to Latvia and Estonia. However, with Lithuania, the poles are a slightly different shape with these even three triangular pattern in terms of the pole top insulators. And equally, their bollards with this bright red-orange fluorescent marker on the right-hand side should let you know you're in Lithuania. The next country we are looking at is Latvia. Latvia looks very similar to Estonia in terms of landscape. You've got these vast open fields with very little around you. But with Latvia, all you need to look for are these poles with these alternating hook insulators, and you'll know you're in Latvia. The next country we are looking at is Estonia. Estonia can be hard to identify. Most of it is very flat land, green fields with not a lot to look at. However, there are two features you can use here. Estonia often have these dashed sidelines alongside Sweden, so you can often narrow it down looking at the outer road lines being dashed. They also have this bollard that looks very similar to the German one that you can also use to identify Estonia. The next country we are looking at here is Finland. Unfortunately, most of Finland will be quite plain, looking like plain remote roads with lots of trees either side. There are a few features you can use, like signs and the road lines. However, the best one, if you can find it, is the street signs. Finland often end their street signs with TIE or TIE to indicate street, and that will let you know you are definitely in Finland. For this next one, I have jumped across the border into Stockholm in Sweden to show you what to look out for. You will often find a lot of yellow street signs and yellow markers on the roads. Often street signs will be yellow. You will also find that the crosswalk has 4 lines on the crossing, which is different to its neighbouring countries. Sometimes Norway has 4, but normally other countries are 5. Also, the language can be easily identified by a lot of the umlauts over the A's and the O's in the text. The next country we are looking at here is Norway. If you find clues, it can be obvious, but sometimes it is hard to differentiate between Sweden and Finland. In this one, you can see a few features. They have this typical Scandinavian architecture of red buildings with these pointed roofs. Also, if you see a green license plate, very green, with a blue strip down the left-hand side, that is a commercial Norwegian license plate. So you should always be in Norway. The other indicator is these bright orange tall snow poles as well. Equally, you will often find that in Norway they use vegan at the end of street names to indicate street, and their street signs are normally yellow with a green marking for the road number. And finally, to round off our segment on Europe, the last country we are covering here is Turkey. There are other small countries, but are not notable for this, as this is quite a whistle-stop tour. Turkey, there are 2 obvious facts to show you. The first one is the stop sign. Instead of saying stop, the signs will say dur or dur in Turkey, as it is Turkish. And the other one is the bollard. They have this unique small red and white bollard too. The next country we have is Israel. Similarly to Jordan, it can be a very easy country to guess if you know what you're looking for. If you suspect you may be in the Middle East and you see yellow license plates all over the place, you are going to be in Israel. Also, you may be able to find yourself some text. If you see writing that looks like this is going to be Hebrew, which is going to be only found in Israel. The next country we have here is Jordan. It can be one of the simplest countries to guess if you know what you're looking for. If you suspect you may be in the Middle East and you see yellow outer road lines combined with a black Google car, you are most certainly in Jordan. The next country we have here is Qatar. There are a few different indicators you can use. The first most obvious one is the Google car. Going in and around Qatar, most of the footage is centered around Doha, the capital, most of it being covered by this big white truck. Equally, you can use the landscape if you are in this generally dry, sandy looking climate with very little around. That is a good indicator for Qatar. You will also often find the red strip on the left hand side of the license plates. The next country we have is the United Arab Emirates, or UAE. First thing to note is that most of the footage is centered in and around Dubai, so you can look for the Dubai skyline with the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, being the most prominent structure to identify where you are. If you look hard enough, you'll most likely find UAE flags all over the place. Combined with the Arabic and English text together, you should know you are in the UAE. The next country is Senegal. Senegal can be easy to spot if you know what to look for. That would be French language and French features in an African looking climate. Senegal is a French-owned territory, meaning you'll often find French writing on signs and on buildings, combined with this Google car and other French features like French bollards and French ladder poles. The next country we have is Ghana. The one way we use to identify Ghana is from the Google car. It should have bars sticking out, and there should be some tape over the front right bar of the roof rack of the vehicle that will let you know you're in Ghana. The next country we have is Nigeria. Nigeria should be easy to spot based on the Google car. It will have some kind of bars and wing mirrors sticking out most likely, and you will be followed by some kind of escort vehicle, usually a police vehicle. The next country on the list is Uganda. Uganda can be very easily identified for two reasons. The first one is the Google car. Uganda used this white truck with the wing mirrors sticking out that you can see in most of the footage. The second one is that it has very minimal Google coverage. 99% of it is centered in and around the capital, which is Kampala. And if you see this kind of layout with this car, you're going to be in Uganda. The next country we have is Kenya. The most obvious clue for Kenya is the snorkel sticking out the front of the vehicle, as you can see here. There are a few different types of Google car, but you will often see something like a truck of this variety with a snorkel or a mirror on the front of it. The next country we have is Botswana. Botswana can be easy to spot if you know what you're looking for. If you see a very dry climate with minimal shrubs and trees, combined with yellow outer lines and a white Google car, you are going to be in Botswana. The next country we have is South Africa. The most obvious thing you want to locate is that we are driving on the left-hand side. In the southern hemisphere, that is going to narrow it down to Australia, New Zealand or South Africa. If you then find signs that look like this, they are green, often with white text and yellow En-road numbers, you are most likely to be in South Africa. The next country we have here is Australia. There are lots of clues you can use for Australia in all the different states, but I am here in New South Wales, where there are a couple obvious ones. The first being yellow license plates, the other being these red no stopping signs. They are specific to New South Wales. But if we're talking more in general for Australia, a sunny climate is a very good indicator. They often have green poles. They will drive on the left-hand side, which if you were in the southern hemisphere is only Australia, New Zealand and South Africa. Equally, they often have yellow traffic light poles, yellow crosswalk signs like this one over here, and green street signs. The next country we have here is New Zealand. There are a couple clues you can look for in New Zealand. The most obvious one is poles that have these possum guards on them to stop possums going up the poles. The second one is the bollards. New Zealand have this unique curved red and white bollard as well. The next country we are going to is Indonesia. There are lots of clues for Indonesia, but the main ones are they drive on the left-hand side. You can often spot the language being similar to English. There's lots of cigarette ads like this one here. They're normally red and black posters. The currency is RP, that will be Indonesia. And you will also find flags all over the place. The next country we are in is Malaysia. There are a lot of obvious clues for Malaysia, but the main obvious one is if you see these black stickers on the poles, you will know you are in mainland Malaysia. Equally, these thick yellow road lines leading up to a junction are also only found in Malaysia. The next country we have is the Philippines. There are a few different ways you can identify the Philippines. Firstly, they drive on the right-hand side, which is slightly different from Indonesia and Malaysia that drive on the left. Equally, you'll see lots of tuk-tuks all around the place. And the currency you can also use is this P symbol on the sign here. The next country we are looking at is Japan, which is normally fairly obvious, but there are a few specific clues if you need them. The first one is that the camera is low cam, which means it's lower to the ground than other footage. That's due to the privacy laws, the same as it is in Switzerland. If you see these black and yellow stickers that are vertical but don't go all the way down to the bottom of the pole, that is an indicator for Japan. Another clue is the Japanese language. It can be distinctive if you know what to look for. The characters often look simpler than in Chinese, and if you see this symbol here, the second one from the end, that is only found in Japanese. The next country we are in, if you haven't already guessed, is South Korea. The easiest way to identify South Korea by far is the language. As you can see, there is a lot of Asian script in front of us. If you see lots of circles in the script, that means it has to be South Korean. There are no circles in Japanese or Chinese. So look for the circles and you should be in South Korea. If you see houses that are built on stilts, you are most likely going to be in Cambodia. The easiest way for me to identify Thailand is by the language. Thai can be quite obvious when you know what you're looking for. Often you see these tiny circles in the text and it often remains quite neat and in a line. you should be able to identify if you look at it for long enough. The other thing is the poles they use in Thailand. They use these square concrete poles with these tiny holes that run all the way up to the top. The next country we have is Bangladesh, normally a pretty obvious one. Normally the footage will look quite busy with lots of bikes and carts and tuk-tuks around the place. The most obvious identifier for Bangladesh is the language. Very similar to forms of Indian, the text often runs with this line, this vertical line that connects all the letters together and has a lot of triangular shapes in the text as well. The next country we have is India, often very similar to Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. India, most of the footage is covered by what we call poop cam or shit cam, which is the camera quality is very low. Normally with India, you're going to see the big front of a truck, as you can here, or a large wide blur at the bottom of the camera. The footage is often tinted with this orangey, hazy look as well. With India, the language can be obvious, but there are a few varieties, so I would use the camera quality first. The next country we are in is Kyrgyzstan. There are two very easy ways to spot Kyrgyzstan. First and most obvious is the Google car yet again. It has two mirrors sticking out of this silver truck with these bars on either side as well, which are part of the roof rack that the camera is mounted on. The other feature that you can spot are the types of license plate. The license plates in Kyrgyzstan have this red stripe on the left-hand side. Here are a couple of examples of it, and that should be enough to let you know you're in Kyrgyzstan. The next country we are looking at is Kazakhstan. The most obvious indicator for Kazakhstan is the Google car. It is brand new footage with this big white truck that has a unique spiral antenna sticking out the front of the vehicle and is the easiest way to spot Kazakhstan. One of the easiest countries to guess is Mongolia, aside from the fact that there is nothing to see in terms of architecture and landscape. The Google car for Mongolia has a massive set of camping gear attached to the vehicle, alongside these roof rack bars and a snorkel at the front of the vehicle. If you see this Google car, you have to be in Mongolia. The next country we are looking at is Russia. Russia is an enormous country with a lot of different types of footage, but there are some key things you can look at. Firstly is the language. It is Cyrillic and can be easy to spot if you know what you're looking for. The next one is that often in Russia you will find they paint the bottom of their signs black. So you'll see a lot of poles and signposts with black paint at the bottom. They also have a unique bollard with this small red reflector on that you can look for too. The next country we have is Iceland. Iceland can be very difficult to identify if you don't know what you're looking for. That's because most of the country looks like this. It's very barren with volcanic, dark coloured dirt or green rolling hills with very little in the way of habitation. The one clue you need to know for Iceland is that they use these yellow bollards all over the country. The next country I have here is Greenland. Now this image is not official coverage, but it gives you a good idea of what the country looks like. There is very minimal coverage in Greenland, but what we do have looks like this. It is a very rocky landscape. On the border of the country, a lot of it you will be able to see the sea with lots of mountains and icebergs in the background. They also have these unique brightly coloured houses often spread out from each other, and a lot of boat coverage as well. The next country we have is Canada. There are, again, like the USA, 1 million clues you can use to identify Canada. However, there are a few specific ones you can use. This stop sign that says arrête, which is French for stop, is only seen in Quebec, which is the French-speaking part of Canada. Equally, if the road signs are French and you look like you might be in the USA, you're going to be in Canada. This is a Canadian traffic cone with this rounded top and bright orange colouring. And if you see speed limit signs that say maximum, you are going to be in Canada as opposed to the USA, which say speed limit. The next country here is the USA. There are lots and lots of clues you can use for USA, some of which are state specific, but if we're talking generally, if you see lots of open, wide highways driving on the right hand side, yellow traffic lights that can often be suspended, green street signs that are often abbreviated like this one, West 3rd Avenue, with endings such as Boulevard, Meadows or Avenue, you're most likely in the USA. Equally, if you look around enough, you will find a flag or two. The next country we have is Mexico. Mexico can be easy to spot if you know what you're looking for. The first thing to look at is their poles. Their poles have an octagonal shape to them, so if you see that, you should most likely be in Mexico. Equally, if you see these pink taxis, often that say CDMEX on them, you are in Mexico. The next country on the list is Guatemala. Guatemala is very easy to locate because it has a unique Google car that looks like this. It has the 2 wing mirrors sticking out and the 4 bars of the roof rack. So if you are looking at a tropical landscape that you think looks like Central or South America and you see this car, it has to be Guatemala. The next country on the list is Colombia. Colombia is also very easy to locate, similarly to Guatemala, but this time because of the license plates. In Colombia, the majority of the license plates are going to be yellow. So if you see Spanish writing and you think you may be in Central or South America and you see yellow license plates everywhere, the best guess is going to be Colombia. The next country we have here is Ecuador. If you want to identify Ecuador, first you're going to want to look for Spanish language. If you see this stubby antenna, this short little antenna on the back of the car, it means you are in one of 4 countries, and those are Mexico, Ecuador, Colombia, or Brazil. If you see that in combination with a bustling city landscape, often with mountains in the background, alongside a variety of yellow taxis, you are likely to be in Ecuador. Often their taxis have an orange license plate and are varying shades of yellow, often with this green and red sign on the top. The next country is Peru. Peru is not the easiest country to identify, however there are some clues. Firstly, you'll see a lot of red and white stripes all over the place. You can see it on these cars here. Often their poles are black and white striped. If you look around, you will see black and white striped poles everywhere you look. It is very common to see the Peru flag around and about, or see writing on the signs that will give it away that say Peru or Lima. And lastly, you'll often find their street signs held up with blocks of cement. The next country is Bolivia. Bolivia doesn't have many specific clues to look out for, but once you play it and you start to play it more, you'll know what you are looking at. This right here is the capital of Bolivia. This is La Paz. La Paz is a sizable city built into a mountainside where you will often see lots and lots of red brick buildings. The other thing to look out for is the Google car. The back of the Google car in Bolivia is white alongside Chile and Peru. Peru has both black and white, just so no one is confused. And that is what to look for in Bolivia. The next country here is Chile. Chile can be hard to spot, but there are some things you can look for. The first one is the poles. Chilean poles have this indent that runs through them, similar to a Brazil pole, so you can look for those. Equally, their street signs look quite like Argentina's in this thing where they've got divided sections with the arrows either side. Other than that, it can be hard to identify. It's often the absence of other clues that will let you know it's Chile. The next country I have here is Brazil. There are 3 clues I will point out for Brazil. The first is the language. In Brazil, they speak Portuguese, so if you can identify Portuguese, you should be either in Brazil or Portugal, which should be an easy differentiation. The next is the poles. In Brazil, they have these indented poles that often have these 3 obvious sections that you can see, similar to the pole in Chile, but these are what they look like in Brazil. And the last is that in Brazil, the back of the street signs will be painted black. Uruguay can be hard to identify, especially as it looks so similar to Argentina, but there are things to look out for. The first is the Google car. Like Argentina and Peru, the Google car in Uruguay is black. The second thing I will point out is the signposts. In Uruguay, most of the signposts are made up of these thick white posts that you will see throughout that are a really good identifier for Uruguay. And last but not least, we have Argentina. For Argentina, you are going to want to look at the Google car. If you see the black Google car, that is a good identifier for Argentina, although it is also found in Peru and Uruguay. Argentina have unique poles that look like these large ladder type poles. But most importantly, you're going to want to look at the license plates. If you see this black dot in the middle of the license plates, it is going to be Argentina. So that was a very quick whistle-stop tour of most of the countries in Geoguessr. Hopefully this is a helpful video to allow you to start making accurate guesses in Geoguessr. Now, I haven't covered every single country that is available. A lot of the smaller places I have skipped. If you want a more in-depth video covering every place, then let me know. Equally, a lot of the clues I've given are generic. They are not specific and will not be right every single time. There are minor exceptions and there are other clues I have missed. But as I said, this was a very quick guide with just one or two things for each country to start to look out for to put you in the right direction. If you want more information, then please let me know. If there are specific countries you want to see me do in detail, then let me know. If you want to see videos on how to region guess countries and other facts about Geoguessr, then put it in the comments down below. And that will be it from me. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.